All right, 25 minutes before 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. Beautiful looking, what is it? Thursday. It's Thursday, of course. There's that music. That means that Climate Control Mechanical Services is on the air. Brandon Wood and Adam Ham are here to help us understand what they do and how they keep us comfortable in our homes and our offices. And I have an office, I have a workplace I want to tell them about that I find fascinating and how they keep it cool. I'll keep that kind of a mystery for a second here. Brandon and Adam, good morning, guys. How you doing?
Good morning.
Good to see you. All right, I won't keep it a mystery anymore. It's the space station. I was reading this thing about the space station that without, in climate control, so to speak, in the space station, it could be 250 degrees in the sun and negative 250 degrees in the shade. It's amazing how,
yeah, it is amazing.
How they're in an environment
I would love
that's...
to see their systems on how they control the temperatures.
Yeah, really.
Other than just insulation. I mean, I know they use, on the old shuttle, they had actual ceramic tiles on the shuttle for when it came back into re-entry.
For that heat, yeah. But I guess when they're out there just floating around, they've got to do something, like you say, to deflect the heat. I was watching this thing in the production room, so that's why it was on my mind. But it is fascinating, how we learn from that whole experience up there.
Yeah, it is.
But the way we cool our homes down, I mean, the basic understanding is that we extract the heat as opposed to blowing in the cool. Is
Correct.
that more accurate?
Correct.
Yes.
And I know you've told us that before.
Yeah,
but
there's a law basically of what they call thermodynamics that basically heat travels from hot to cold, not the other way around. So basically, what we're doing is drawing air out of the warm air through the return system across the cold evaporator coil, which is where the refrigerant is flowing through, which actually the heat permeates through the copper or aluminum coil and is cooled and then returned to the house, and all the humidity that's in your house, it can't permeate the metal, so that's what drains off and goes out of your condensate drain lines. That's how AC units basically remove the moisture from your home. So
the dew point of your coil, the indoor coil, is actually lower than the house dew point. So that's how dew is created outside. The dew point is actually lower, and then the sun hits it and creates dew, or at night.
Right.
And that's how humidity is extracted off your coil. The water actually condenses that's in the air and then just flows off the side of the coil. That's why it is so important for the drain lines to be blown out. A lot of customers, I go to their house, their installation was perfect, and they're just wondering, well, why is it broken? It's not necessarily broken. It's just something that needs to be maintained. I was just looking. We were also going to talk a little bit today about the fact that we've talked about where the industry is going, where it's evolved from.
Right.
Like he said, it's went from basically extracting heat from the air to all the way into filtering the systems, bringing fresh air in if that's something you need. As far as Wi-Fi thermostats, controlling the technology. And it's kind of, we read an analogy, it's kind of like the automobile. Once they perfected the internal combustion engine, they started adding the features and benefits. And that's the same thing they're doing with air conditioning, is how much efficiency can we get out of this system? What's the noise levels of it, which is a very large...
Something's beeping over there.
Yeah, that's my phone.
Somebody's changing the thermostat.
Always. But I was just looking at, one of my distributors has an app on the phone, and I can find all I need is the part number or model number, and I can find literature on everything.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of our time has to do with researching parts on really, really old systems rather than getting the OEM part, which can be very, very expensive. We can get something newer, like an aftermarket motor.
Can you just go back and define OEM? What is that?
Original factory equipment.
Oh, okay.
Or original. I'm not sure what that exact.
Right.
I think it's original equipment manufacturer or something.
It's when you get the original part that was in that. Like, I looked up a motor on a system that was 25 years old. The guy really wanted to replace the motor rather than replace the system, and because the system was 25 years old and they didn't have a lot of those motors, they were an obscene amount of money. So I had found him a motor that worked just as good. There are a lot of aftermarket parts out there, and that all comes into play. As techs, we need to keep up with the technology as much as the homeowner does, even
yeah.
more so, because time is money, and the faster I can get, the less money you spend, the faster I can get parts ordered and installed.
Looks like we have a phone call. By the way, I should have mentioned the phone number here. I was so anxious to talk about the space station story. The phone number is the WOCA Climate Control Source Hotline, 622-WOCA. Good morning. You're on the air with Brandon and Adam.
Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
I'm calling about it seems to me like a lot of the new replacements of AC units, they're running the lines up the side of the wall or the outside of the house, through the soffits up into the attic, and then I'm assuming across the attic down to wherever the unit is. What happened to the original chase? Somebody told me they stick foam in there, but that's more or less, I guess, to keep the critters and whatnot out. But foam is foam. Why can't we pull out the lines that are in that chase and fish new lines through the chase rather than mess around with the outside of the house, which is not the most aesthetic thing to do, is to run these things up and down the outside of the wall. And I'll hang up and listen to your answer on that. But I personally think if the chase is there, you should use it. Thank you.
I absolutely agree. If the chase is there, the problem does come into play when the line set is a lot more difficult, almost impossible to get it through that chase, especially if there's a lot of curves in it. A lot of times they use landscaping corrugated pipe, and they run that line set through the pipe first on the outside so they can guide it through there. Then they lay the whole thing, then concrete is poured on top of it. So they lay that line set well before the concrete's ever poured. And then they do fill it with spray foam, as they said, to keep a lot of critters out there, keep moisture out of it, and to actually pull all that out and run a new line set sometimes does work. And our particular company, that's the first thing they try to do, because we don't want the line set going up. It doesn't affect the system quality at all. It doesn't affect the performance of the system, but it is from an aesthetic standpoint.
Yeah.
We would much rather go in the ground and along using the old line set. And as far as replacing the line sets, it has to be done. That's why we've been getting a lot of calls about the line sets, and it's an absolute necessity when you replace the system because of the refrigerant oils in the old R22 and the 410A systems do not mix at all. They actually turn into a gel.
Yeah,
but
you mentioned it last week.
Yeah.
I would imagine aesthetics are probably really important. I'm one of those guys that, how a shop looks? I would be okay. My house would be fine, but everybody else would hate that, so.
Yeah.
Aesthetics is something you have to consider.
Yeah, and a lot of times the covers, the line set covers we do use, we cover the entire line set when we go up, when we do have to go up the wall. They are perfectly able to be painted and primered. So a lot of times, once they're painted to match the house, they don't look too bad.
Yeah.
But then you run into problems when somebody's got, say, like a brick house. Then you're starting to run into a little more problems. Then you got this giant sheet metal going up above, going along the brick.
What about the aesthetics of the actual unit itself? I don't think I've ever seen anything that kind of tries to camouflage it. Are there some people say, I don't want anybody to be able to see this air conditioner?
Lots of people seem to think that, because that we've been to dozens of homes where we're crunched over behind bushes, or
they do that intentionally.
Behind
they
some
hide
sort
them.
of wall. Yeah, they're trying to hide them, which is okay as long as they keep the distance away from the unit, because basically the unit has to breathe. The hot air that's basically transferred into the refrigerant, when it's pumped outside into the condensing unit, that's where it releases that heat. That's how it gets the heat out of your home. So if you have stuff, a wall or even another AC unit or something that's right next to it, that hot air has nowhere to go, and a lot of times it ends up getting sucked right back in. And we've seen all kinds of things where we have to contort ourselves. So
it just occurred to me that maybe some of it is aesthetics, maybe some of it is trying to prevent like thieves and people from messing with it.
I
what I mean?
can see that, out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah,
but it is mostly aesthetics. People do their landscape around it, and I'd keep a pair of tree pruners in my truck, And I don't have to deal with it as much as I had to in Naples. Down there, all the gated communities, I was telling him about it, they put gates around their units. They do everything to not see these units. They do not want to see them. Yes, and they build these multi-million-dollar homes and use as much of the property as they possibly can in a lot of instances, and then they build this stand for all the units. They have to be above the ground to be above floodplain, and they will put all these units right next to each other, sometimes with this much space in between them. And like Adam was saying, it really rises the head pressure
for
and
those
creates
listening,
all that heat.
That looked about 6 inches.
Exactly, and a lot of times if you go to replace that unit with a lot more efficient unit, the unit is actually bigger. So then you run into problems. I've seen units where they're halfway out off the slab, or this much of the unit is hanging off the slab. So we definitely have to deal with, and as far as when the unit's not just only running. We have to deal with moisture collecting inside the units. Anything that collects in the bottom of your unit, like leaves and stuff like that, is okay in most instances. But in the summertime, when it's really, really high moisture, if that unit doesn't get some sort of airflow through it, that moisture just collects in there and it rusts parts out. I got a customer this week that I condemned what's called a suction line accumulator because it's all rusted out. And there are a lot of prep things we can do as techs to actually prevent that. We use I use a gray primer spray paint because it's better than what the manufacturer uses as far as the paint on some parts, and that's the whole reason it corrodes and rusts. So I can actually, as a tech, I can extend the life of a lot of parts.
You ever run into the I can fix it, honey, and then they don't, and they call you, and it's actually worse than if they called you at first?
Yes.
You get absolutely. That line. I can see it on your faces.
Yes. We had one a couple weeks ago. I went out there a month and a half ago, and he is a service agreement customer. I went out there after hours.
Oh, no.
For free, because he didn't have to pay a diagnostic fee, because he's a service agreement customer, and which normally is around $112 in after-hours service. It was like 7 o'clock at night. And I told him that his thermostat went bad, but it was an intermittent problem. So I said, if we come back and it's the same problem, we're going to have to, as a business, charge you a diagnostic fee. We can't keep coming in and out, in and out. And he totally understood that. So I had him sign the ticket. And sure enough, about a month later, tech went out during the hours and condemned his thermostat. Well, he decided that he was going to go buy his own thermostat. So he went and bought the exact same thermostat he had.
Right.
And I came to the house. I installed it for him. He literally got a bad thermostat right out of the box. He had to actually drive all the way back into town. I mean, by the time you take in consideration his time, the gas he used, the fact that he had to come into town, he lives all the way out off, actually way out in almost to Denellen in Spruce Creek, off of 200. It's way out there.
Yeah, right.
And he had to drive all the way back in, and his wife kind of just looked at him at the end and said, see, you might as well just went with him. In the long run, he used one of our thermostats.
Oh, really?
So
oh, no.
It's unfortunate, but we do get a lot of people, they install their own thermostats, and most of the time they do a good job.
Where does somebody go, not that we want to name businesses, but, I mean, are there businesses that would sell thermostats? I didn't even know you could do that.
Oh, yeah.
You can buy them at Lowe's,
Home Depot.
Oh, see, I guess I just
You can buy them at Walmart.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty crazy, the stuff you can buy, especially like electrical. I mean, you should not, unless you really know what you're doing, you should not be doing any electrical work at your own home. And they sell the supplies at Home Depot to completely rewire your whole house, from breakers to panels to... I'm actually surprised they sell that kind of stuff.
Well, maybe that's for people who know. See, I wouldn't even begin to try that, But I'm guessing that's there for those guys like you. But
I prefer it.
So how do you do it? I mean, do you, in your own home? I mean, you know how to do it, so...
I just do it.
You just do it the same way you do for everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
same thing.
It's one of those things. I mean, even my wife and I just recently bought a home, and just having the knowledge, it's one of those things that, and this is something that we stress to our customers, is preventative maintenance. That's something that we offer as a biannual, service agreement, where we come out and, we're not a lot of people think it's some sort of scam, but it's not. I mean, we're there, we're checking the system so that we can try to foresee problems. We can't prevent everything, but that's something that even I do on my own system is checking it, changing your air filters regularly, things like that.
Okay, so that's something we can do. Air filters?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a huge part of it. And a lot of people think, oh, I can go 6 months without it, and it really all depends. Do you have carpet? Do you have hardwood floors? Do you live in a dusty area?
And here's the question I've always had. Sometimes the air filter, I change the air filter sometimes. It doesn't even look dirty. It's been a month, and I did this at my mom's place. And
I would change it anyway.
It looks clean, but I'm just following the rules, and
definitely.
Is it possible you have like white dust or something? It just looks white?
Every couple months. Even if it goes more than 3 months, I would definitely recommend changing. Especially depending on what kind of filter you use. I don't really recommend using the synthetic filters where they're just flat. Throw away the pleated white ones that you can buy at Home Depot, and even the grocery store has them.
Pleated, yeah.
They're a lot better filters. You do not need the really. They put the pleat so close. 3M makes them. They're hypoallergenic filters. You can spend $20 on a filter if you want to, but it's really not going to help that much more than a regular pleated filter, if any.
I don't know if this is a dumb or superficial question, but on those filters there's an arrow for the flow of air.
Yes.
What happens if you put it in backwards? What's the?
It's basically the only thing that happens. It's for the construction of the filter. It goes up because it's forcing the air. It's forcing the actual white filter material against a metal mesh that they put on the top.
Just so it doesn't
if
get
it goes
sucked in.
the other way, it can actually flex a lot more. So it's more from a structural standpoint than if you put it in backwards. It's not.
Have you ever had that where something got sucked into it?
Oh yeah, I've had filters where the homeowner put it in, and it sucked all the way up into the coil because the filter was too small.
Yeah.
And then they just put another filter underneath it, and that filter in the coil eventually got so dirty that the system was icing up. And until I came out and actually found, oh wow, there's a filter stuck in the coil. I pulled it out. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
It's full of dirt. And so, again, it all goes back to proper maintenance.
The phone lines are open if you have a question. This is a good time to ask a question about your air conditioning. We are almost up to June. This is about the time of year where we start wishing we had called somebody earlier if we needed it. So,
hurricane season's right around the corner.
The best information, it sounds like, from my perspective, is your phone number. Simply because, except for changing the filter and maybe brushing away the leaves and a few other simple things, it sounds like I better just keep my hands off of the thing.
Well, we test a lot of something that we do as part of our preventative maintenance. We check electrical components, that's something that not only do you have to have the knowledge, you have to have the proper tools, but it's really one of those things that's probably best that's left up to a professional because we can take the readings, but you also have to know what to do with the information that you're gathering from the system. We check amp draws, the voltage going into the system, the capacitors, are they good? Because if they go bad, or even start to get weak, it puts a strain on other parts such as your compressor, which can be very expensive. And that's why I say we can't prevent everything, but it does give us an idea and helps us to foresee things that could go wrong. And of course they always go down at the most inconvenient time on a Friday night when you're having company come and it's 90 degrees outside. So we just try to foresee those things and keep them from breaking down. So
and there is also some things to definitely be careful of with service agreements. Are there some scams out there with service agreements? Yes, there is. They're not necessarily service agreements, but whenever you see the $29.95 checkup, well, we were just reading something. On average, it costs a company relatively $45 an hour to keep a tech on the road, and that's his wages, workman's comp. And that's not even including fuel, truck and all that.
Right.
So it would not be feasible to send a technician to your house at $29.99 an hour. So they are automatically going to try and sell you something. Whether it's a new system, I have seen systems that are 4 years old. They've been replaced. because of something gone wrong. So there is, unfortunately, a lot of dishonesty in the... I mean, I read an ad one time for... I was going to apply to this air conditioning company, and it said, literally in the ad, every call is a sales call. In other words, I was not there to fix them. I was there to sell them.
Gotcha.
Because, like he said, and like you, there is a lot that they don't know about the system, and there's a lot of things that techs can do to them.
Well, yeah.
And
trusting the person who's working on things, whether it's your car, your body, or
absolutely.
And you said the key word trust. That's the biggest thing our customers like. Is I've got customers that I could tell them what they need to do, and they will trust that I'm giving them the best option for them.
Oh, yeah.
I did that for a lady the other day. Her motor went bad. The factory motor would have cost her around $1,200 or $1,300.
Wow.
But I was able to get a different motor for her. Works just as good, and it cost her around $500. So she's seen that, and wow, a company that helps
sounds
save
bad
me
till you
money.
hear the alternative.
Yeah, exactly. It's still expensive, but when she heard $1,200, she was ready to get it because she has to.
Right.
Her motor's bad in her AC unit. She has to buy it. It was out of warranty, but I was able to put in a conversion kit and a different motor, and she's up and running.
There used to be kind of this theory with cars that if you wanted, the theory was if you buy a really popular car, even if it's not the one you really want, you're more likely to be able to get parts for it later on when it needs it because there's so many people buying it. Is that true for air conditioners too? Are brand names important?
Yes, they are. I run into a lot of brands that can be tough to get parts for. Brands
really?
Like Coleman units.
Really?
Nordyne makes different units. Nordyne makes Intertherm and Westinghouse, where they actually put Westinghouse brand, like the TV brand you always see on TVs.
Right.
The biggest names are Rheem, Goodman, Trane, Carrier. Even Lennox, though, I have to order my parts. I had a customer, I was telling him that had me go all the way to Orlando to get a motor. And they paid my time to drive down there, pick up the motor, and come back and put it in. Because our closest Lennox distributor is in Orlando. And that is also something you really want to think about when you're buying a system. How available are these parts?
Right, yes.
Especially Goodman. I can get Johnstone to open on the weekends. They usually don't. They have a $50 opening charge, but a lot of times they won't charge me for it, and I have used it. I've gotten compressors on the weekends. So pretty much all the distributorships around here, whether it's Gem Air, Johnstone, or Trane, they'll have after-hours service because they know how important it is to meet them at the store and actually open it to get parts that are very specific. Now, we definitely pride ourselves in carrying as much stock as we can on our trucks, but I'd have to drive a semi even more to have everything. There's no way I can have everything. Plus, the cost of having everything just sitting on my truck is... It would be huge.
So Coleman is good for camping stoves, but stay away from air conditioners.
Yeah, exactly. They used to make, people find all sorts of stuff on the internet, and it's not that I don't recommend buying a system on the internet, but I had a guy that bought a condenser on the internet, wanted me to come down and install it, and because he had already bought it, I went to his house. I said, I can't install this. It's against codes, especially where he was living in the villages.
Oh, wow.
I said, you have to replace your whole system. So he had to go through possibly shipping the unit back, possibly eating the unit. They might not have taken it back. Plus, they ship units with no refrigerant, because you have to have an EPA card to buy units with refrigerant. You have to be a business. So, because most of our units come pre-packaged with refrigerant. We set the unit up, we vacuum the line set and the coil inside, and then we actually release the refrigerant into it.
Obviously make it a good case for culling you guys. So.
Absolutely.
Makes sense. It's always made sense to me.
Honestly, I don't want to do this all the time, but if you just want to pick my brain about a new AC system, we come out for free. I can give you quotes on pretty much anything you want, and you can go on the internet. The internet has been a wonderful tool, both for me and the customers, to be able to research their systems, look at testimonials on systems, how good the warranty is. So a lot of times we've gotten away from being able to scam the customer, because they can look right on the internet. And unfortunately, they get prices on the internet sometimes too, which are crazy sometimes. What I see these customers can buy this equipment for is prices I can't even buy it for.
Oh, wow.
But like I said, it's all without refrigerant in it, no warranty. If they buy that, the customer with that condenser, he has no warranty on that condenser.
Buyer beware, yeah.
Whereas everything else has 10 years.
Brendan and Adam, thank you for what you do and for helping educate us about what you do. You want to give a phone number out?
291-0185.
Okay, and call us here at the radio station if you need that repeated. We'll be glad to do that. Brendan Wood and Adam Ham, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
We'll take a little break and be right back.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA. Ocala.
ABC News Now. I'm Daniela Bellotta. A 9-year-old girl killed when the tornado struck Moore, Oklahoma, will be the first to be laid to rest today. Antonia Candelaria died along with 6 classmates. On Sunday, President Obama will tour the damage.